Hi folks, and welcome to Tiny Kitchen. We're pretty sure this is the smallest space to ever feature a cooking show. If we can cook it here, you can cook it anywhere. Did you catch this week's recipe riddle? I come in all shapes and sizes. Some are ugly, sleek, or wizened. I smell fishy, but salmon doesn't run in my crowd. What am I? Well, I'm whitefish, and I'm featured on today's show as we make poached whitefish. Our ingredients for this episode are really easy. We're using ling cod as our whitefish today, a combination of fresh chard and kale, chicken broth that we made previously, wedged oranges, and we're using a new seasoning to the Tiny Kitchen line, Great China, and an old favorite, broccoli chip, together with a few pieces of star anise. You might recognize these as traditional Chinese spices, and you're going to love the way that this dish turns out. First, we're going to prep our kale, and the way we're going to do it for this dish is to pulse it in a food processor. The advantage of pulsing is it breaks the pieces down. They're much easier to chew when you eat them later on. And also when you season them, the flavor of the seasoning gets through your vegetable a lot better and a lot more evenly. It takes away a lot of that bitter taste that we associate with kale and chard. When we pulse our vegetables, we're going to do it in short bursts because that tends to pull the vegetables down into the blades a lot easier. If they get stuck like they are now, just use a wooden spoon to push them down a little bit and keep right on going. When you pulse a vegetable like kale or chard, you want to pulse it until it's in small pieces, but don't go so far that it begins to liquefy inside of the canister. Right here is just what you want. A nice little bite-sized piece, no liquid in the bottom. This is what we want for today's dish. Equipment today is simple. This is a one-pan dish. You want a high-sided skillet with a tight-fitting lid, because poaching is going to create steam, and we're going to cook the fish with steam. Now, why poaching instead of frying or baking or some other method to cook fish? Because whitefish dries out very, very easily, and by cooking with poaching, you keep the fish moist and lock that flavor in instead of letting it get dried out and kind of cardboardy. So we're going to start by turning our heat on medium. We have a half a cup of chicken broth for our dish. We're going to start with a quarter cup of it. Now, if you don't remember how to cook chicken broth the clean and healthy way, we had a previous episode with fragrant soup where we teach you how to do it step by step. So feel free to go back and look at the method there. And then we just freeze it and pull it out and use it whenever we need it for a dish. We're also going to take about a teaspoon of the Tiny Kitchen Great China seasoning. This is very similar to Chinese 5-spice. If you don't have this, you can use Chinese 5-spice. I like this one a little better because it's got just a touch more kick to it. Then we'll stir that around as it heats up. We're going to go ahead and drop our orange wedges in there too. These are 2 oranges wedged. We'll have 2 servings of fish, and when we're done, this is a dish for 2. And we want to put the oranges down into that mixture until you have an even layer. Don't let your orange wedges stack on top of one another. You want an even layer across the bottom. And this will get important in just a moment. Now, while that's heating up, we'll go ahead and put the lid on. We want to get our fish prepared. With our fish, we're going to want to sprinkle both sides of our fish with Great China seasoning. You don't want it too heavy, but you don't want it too light. Just get a nice even smattering. I had one viewer mention that it looks like I use a lot more seasoning than I say I do in the recipe. And that's just because I'm pinching it with my fingers. It looks like it's a lot more when it's sprinkling out. This is really only about a teaspoon of the seasoning. We'll go ahead and sprinkle the other side as well. There we go, fish is ready. We'll give it just a minute to finish heating up. We've got a little boil going on with the juice in the bottom. Once that starts to turn a little bit syrupy with the Great China seasoning, we'll go ahead and add the other quarter cup of the chicken broth to the bottom. And now we're going to set our fish in, and you'll understand the reason for the oranges. When you cook fish, when you poach it, you don't want it to sit on the bottom of the skillet. If it sits on the bottom of the skillet, it's going to burn. By holding it up on top of the orange slices, we accomplish two things. We get a very even, nice poach on the fish, and at the very same time, those oranges are going to cook down into a remarkable glaze that can go over the dish at the end of it. We're going to turn this just a little bit higher, and we're going to leave this in the skillet for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll check the fish and see how we're doing. For this week's Tiny Tips, I want to take a question from a viewer in Houston. The question is this: every episode you say the dish is RFL friendly. What does that mean? I'm glad you asked the question, and let me explain briefly. RFL stands for Rapid Fat Loss, and it's one of the 4 phases of the Fat Free With Me weight loss program, for which we initially created this channel. And while the recipes are delicious and healthful and wonderful for everyone, they're designed particularly for the Fat Free With Me audience losing weight during that RFL phase. RFL, Rapid Fat Loss. If you're on the market for a weight loss program, feel free to check out our site, fatfreewithme.com, and get some additional information on the program. Thank you, and please keep the questions coming. Put your questions at the end of this video or on our Facebook page. We'd love to address yours here as well. Tiny tips, folks. Big results. All right, the timer just went off. Let's take a look at our fish. Oh, wow. That really does look good. When I put this fish in here, it smelled a little fishy too, but oh wow, right now it smells so good. I'm going to turn the temperature way down on low. We don't want it to cook very much more. You can see how it's nice and opaque. This is just where you want a white fish to be, to where it's just done through to the middle, but not overdone. So we're going to turn the temperature way down. We're going to step over here, and we're going to finish prepping our greens. This again is chard and kale. Chard is known as a rather bitter green. A lot of people won't even try it just because of bad childhood memories. I know my mom used to boil this stuff until it was gray, lifeless, and had no flavor left in it at all, trying to get that bitter out. All you really need to do is get the right spice on it, and once you accomplish that, the bitter goes away and it gets replaced with just the most delicate, wonderful flavors. So we'll get that on there, we'll toss it in. And you remember we talk every episode about plating. Always keep your eye out for nice ways and attractive ways to plate your food. Because remember, the way your food looks affects how your food tastes. So always keep it beautiful. I happened to find at one of the discount stores a plate that we're going to use for this dish that has the nice festive theme to it. We'll take this dish and we'll put our greens onto the bottom. Now you saw how many greens that we put into the food processor. When you pulse them, they really work down to not very much of anything. When you put these greens underneath your fish to eat them, it just adds a whole nother dimension of great flavor, and you forget you're even eating greens when you do it this way. So we'll smooth it all around the bottom of the dish here. Then we'll pick our fish out of the pan. Set them on top of the greens here. Get a piece of that star anise up on top of it too, just for show. Now, you want to let fish, like most meats, set for a few minutes before you serve it. While that's happening, we're going to crank the heat back up a little bit on our pan without the lid. And we're going to allow this sauce to reduce just a little bit. And if you remember from previous episodes, reduction in a sauce will cause it to thicken up a little bit, intensify the flavors. So the flavors of this great China spice, together with the chicken broth, the star anise, and the oranges, are going to come together in a really, really nice glaze that we'll spoon over this dish before we serve it. Alright, this sauce is getting just about where we want it. You can see the oranges are broken down, not really identifiable as wedges anymore. The sauce is beginning to thicken up. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn the temperature off. And we'll spoon a little bit of the glaze over the top of the oranges. Not too much. You don't want it to overpower this dish because it's already delicious. But it gives it a little bit of attractiveness, adds a little bit of sweetness. What you're going to have here is a sweet dish, a savory dish, and a dish oh so delicious. Wow, isn't that beautiful? Poached whitefish, folks. Give it a shot. You're going to love this. I come in all shapes and sizes, ugly, sleek, or wizened. I smell fishy, but salmon is not in my crowd. What am I? I'm whitefish. Tonight, particularly, I'm ling cod. I really hope you enjoyed tonight's recipe of poached whitefish. And remember the cooking technique. Raise your food up off of your skillet by using the foods that will become your sauce later. It's a wonderfully delicious and easy cooking technique to use with a wide variety of recipes. You can find this full recipe on our website, fatfreewithme.com. And don't forget, if you're looking for Tiny Kitchen seasonings, shop.fatfreewithme.com. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching, folks. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please take a moment to subscribe to this Tiny Kitchen YouTube channel. While you're at it, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/ffwmtinykitchen. And heck, while you're there, post us your photos when you cook this dish. If you're interested in the Fat Free With Me weight loss program, please visit fatfreewithme.com for more information. And to find out more about Tiny Kitchen spice blends, please email us at customercare@fatfreewithme.com for information. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week.